Let's go to Rand Paul. Hello, Senator. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm thinking about lobbying to become an illegal immigrant so I wouldn't have to participate in Obamacare.
Is that amazing? We were talking about this morning, that if you are an employer, you can avoid all of the fines by hiring what used to be illegal immigrants. And so, I mean, how do the labor unions even claim to represent the American worker anymore? This will cost so many people their jobs.
Yeah, well, it is completely insane, and I think it was hilarious. Somebody was asking, it might have been your website, was asking different senators if they understood this, and most of them have no comprehension of this. They also have no comprehension of the fact that the new bill now allows the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security to veto any fence being built.
So, Senator, where does this go from here?
Unfortunately, the train's left the station and the Senate's going to pass it and vote for it. I've said while I am for immigration reform that we should fix the system, that I can't vote for it because it doesn't do border security first and it doesn't make legalization dependent upon border security. So I became disillusioned a couple of weeks ago when the Republican members of the Gang of Eight said that precisely the opposite, that they did not think legalization should be dependent on border security.
So, do you think the House, does John Boehner have the spine not to bring something to the floor?
I think it's dead on arrival. The Senate bill is dead on arrival in the House. The House members I've talked to, and there is a conservative group over there, the Republican Study Committee, I've spoken to them. They're in a much different place. They really are nowhere near what the Senate bill is like. So they're going to pass something that I think will be a much better, more tolerable bill.
Wait, but that is a Trojan horse.
Maybe, and that's the real question. The question is how does the conference committee work? My understanding is that if Boehner says, and he appoints people to the conference committee that will not bring it back, that the House conferees decide whether it comes back. I think it's a separate vote for House conferees and Senate conferees. And the House conferees decide to bring it back. Also, the Speaker has a great deal of power over what happens. I think the Speaker can decide on any one day what comes to the floor and what doesn't. He said he will not pass something with majority Democrats and a minority of Republicans. If he sticks to that, I think that we're pretty well protected. He has the power to protect us, and he said he will.
Do you believe him?
I think that I very much desire. I very much desire to have immigration reform that does positive things, not bad things, and I hope that he's going to stand tall on this. That wasn't the answer
to the question. The answer is really quite simple: a yes or no. But I'm not going to push you on that.
You heard my answer.
I heard your answer.
Don't be pushing me, man.
I hear your answer. I know it. Okay, let me switch topics. What's happening with the Gay Marriage Act today in the Supreme Court? Let's start with Proposition 8. The idea that the government, now the Supreme Court has said that if the government decides not to back what the people have passed now twice, if they don't represent it and say, we care about this, then it has no place to even go to the Supreme Court. So in other words, the people you're on your own.
Yeah, I want to preface this, Glenn, with making sure that you know how radical you are, because you're sounding like Ron Paul on this issue.
I sound like Ron Paul on a lot of issues, just not any of the overseas foreign policy stuff.
Well, here's the thing on the marriage thing. I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing yet. I'm getting snippets of it from the press. What I would say is that when they affirmed the lower court, or they sort of left the lower court decide on Proposition 8, I think they do it on a technicality, and this is what Mike McConnell wrote 2 months ago in the Wall Street Journal. It is a way of technically punting so they don't make a decision on states deciding. So I don't think they're saying that California can't decide. I just think they did a technical punt, and so they're trying to say nothing is what they're trying to say. But in doing that, the other side of the coin is there are 34 states who have decided in favor of traditional marriage. Those are affirmed now. I live in Kentucky, and we have it as part of our Constitution. So I think the good side to this ruling is they have affirmed to states that this is a state issue and that states can decide. Now, you could argue otherwise for California, but I think they didn't make a statement in California. They could have come down and affirmed the decision to strike down Proposition 8. They just let it stand without taking a position on it, which is different than affirming the rejection of Proposition 8. If they would have affirmed rejection of Proposition 8 and nationalized that, they would have overturned 34 states with traditional marriage, and I think all you know what would have broken loose then. So they did actually take a more moderate course here, and I think traditional marriage laws are still upheld now in 34 states.
They're upheld, though, as long as the state decides to defend them, right? If any state gets challenged and says, you know what, we're not going to defend that, that essentially gives the state the veto power over the people, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think they saw themselves in a box and no way to go in, either to go in and overturn the appellate court in San Francisco and say Prop 8 stands. They did, they didn't. They wanted to go the other way. Philosophically, they're trying to go more towards this the proposition of accepting gay marriage doctrine.
What is the Constitution?
I think it still is a technical punt, is what it is, in the sense that by doing so, they also allowed stand 34 state laws.
What do you believe the Constitution says?
I think on marriage, nothing, and it says essentially the 9th and 10th Amendment leave it to the states. Our founding fathers never conceived of marriage being anywhere distant in Washington, and I would tell people who are for traditional marriage, the battle is going to be lost at the federal level. Concentrate on your state. Okay, so let me go there. I am very concerned. I really don't care. You get married, you don't get married, you have homosexual marriage or whatever. First problem with this is if you change one variable, man and a woman, to man and woman and woman, you cannot then tell me that you can't logically change the other variable. One man, 3 women. One woman, 4 men. You can't do that. And who are you to say that if I'm a devout Muslim and I come over here and I have 3 wives, who are you to say if I'm an American citizen that I can't have multiple marriages? Right. And I think this is the conundrum and gets back to what you were saying in the opening, whether or not churches should decide this. But it is difficult because if we have no laws on this, people take it to one extension further. Does it have to be humans? So there really are. The question is, what social mores, can some social mores be part of legislation? Historically, we did at the state legislative level, we did allow for some social mores to be part of it. Some of them were said to be for health reasons and otherwise. But I'm kind of with you. I see the thousands of year tradition of the nucleus of the family unit. I also see that economically, if you just look without any kind of moral periscope and you say, what is it that is a leading cause of poverty in our country? It's having kids without marriage. The stability of the marriage unit is enormous, and we should not just say, oh, we're punting on it and marriage can be anything.
Let me go to the IRS. The IRS is out of control. We find out more information now that the IRS is using stolen credit cards. They are throwing these wild, stupid parties. They now came out and said that, well, we looked into it and we didn't violate anything with the Tea Party and everything else. There is no evidence at all that these guys are getting their ears boxed at all.
Oh, come on, Glenn. You don't think dressing up in Star Trek uniforms helps the IRS agents to do a better job?
No, of course it does.
Magicians, elephants, all that really helps them to have a better thought process on the job.
They spent $4,000 on kazoos.
One of the most striking things to me, and this is important for people to think about, if they think they can fix this problem by getting rid of 1 or 2 employees, the union that runs the IRS gave $1 million to Democrats over the last 2 cycles and $20,000 to Republicans. I think if you look at the Republicans, they're really Republicans in name only. But I think what you're seeing is there a pervasive attitude that dislikes the Tea Party, conservatives, Republicans, Christians, religious conservatives, because that's who works over there, and they give all their money to the other side already, and they see their job as an extension of what their union does. And that's, to me, maybe a fundamental problem for all of government.
We are creating a second-class citizen. We are creating a world where the Bill of Rights is the Bill of Civil Rights. That's all it is. You have a right to do these things. These are the same rights that Martin Luther King marched for. These are the same rights that Abraham Lincoln died for. They're the same rights that our founders warned us would slip away from. The same things that Moses was saying. It never changes. And I don't know how to say it any plainer. There are ways for us to unite as a people, both left and right, not progressive, but both liberal and conservative, and it is on civil rights, and they are violating them everywhere, whether it is snooping in your life, telling you how to worship God or not worship God, telling you, that they can just take your private papers, whether they can kill you from the sky, whether they can scoop you up at night. It's really remarkable.
Well, I think these are issues that are going to resonate beyond the Republican base if we can capture them. For example, the youth vote has dropped 20% for Obama in the last month because they see him as a hypocrite and not defending the privacy of the Internet. I think if you look at indefinite detention, which President Obama also signed into being, that says an American citizen can be detained indefinitely, sent to Guantanamo Bay without a charge or a trial or without a lawyer, I think if we take that message and we take that message to the African-American community that's been treated unjustly by government in the past, worse so in the past, but still maybe even in the present, I think if we take those ideas of justice to the African-American community and say, look, the Democrats don't really care about justice or jury trials or lawyers, we do, I think all of a sudden you could see a transformation in our country or a transformational election where all of a sudden, topsy-turvy, the people who once thought Democrats were their protectors would actually go to a Republican who says, I will protect your civil rights.
Big time. It is the answer. All Americans fundamentally know those self-evident rights, and they are still self-evident to people. And if you start talking that language, but the Republicans aren't doing it. The Republicans don't know their butt from their elbow. And as Pat pointed out, it's really easy. You don't sit on your elbow.
Oh, come on, Glenn. Now, there's a few good ones up here. Give us a break.
No, you know what? And there are more than there ever has been, at least since in recent memory. There's a lot of them, and you're one of them, and I appreciate it.
Well, there's a struggle going on, too. You see it every day because I rarely will mention any other names of people in my caucus because I just don't think it's good form. But you'll see almost daily 2 or 3 of the other members that are from the more authoritarian wing are hounding and using my name and trying to vilify what I'm doing. But they're doing that because they're losing the battle, and they see that the majority of people in our country, Republican or Democrat, don't want their mail opened by the government.
And I can't believe that so many are like, I don't think there's a problem with that. Senator Rand Paul, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the fight that you put up, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you. Bye-bye.